60,000 soldiers. Now, there ain't but 20,000 police in the whole town. Can you dig it?
Black Spades came into existence around 1969. And one of the reasons why the Black Spades came into existence was our founders were members of the Black Panthers and the Nation of Islam. The Black Spades was never, ever, and I'm going to repeat, ever, ever to be a gang. The Spades came in the Soundview area, and they came out, you understand, to help the community. Back then, you know, we had a large drug population back then, and a lot of people don't understand. Blacks were locked down back then. We had a lot of places in the Bronx that we couldn't go into because you had the white gangs that we had to fight in all the high schools. So when the Spades came out, all they wanted to do was get into the schools safely and protect their neighborhoods from the drugs and everything like that. We were never, ever, ever to be a gang. But when the leadership turned over, it went from one way to another way.
When most people hear the word gang, Brother Tiny, you and I both know what goes in their head. Oh, it's a gang. There's some thugs. There's some hooligans. They robbing trucks. They burning down stuff. They robbing people. Now, to be honest, you know that if we gonna be honest, we know there's some of that is involved, but we also know there's much more than just that, right? And so, what are the things that you think people listening who have a very low opinion of street organizations think all they do is crime? If you can help broaden their perspective on what more they bring.
Back in the 70s, when you heard of gangs that was dominating certain areas: Skulls, Nomads, Reapers, Javelin, Seven Immortals, Bachelors. You understand? And each of these organizations was monopolizing their area for one reason or another. And quiet as is kept, they was protecting the area. You know, if I sit here and say to you that we didn't do dumb things as kids, I'd be lying. We did dumb things as kids as well. But basically, this is when the leadership of the Spades turnover and our elders had left, and new leadership came into play. And when the new leadership came into play, we started increasing in numbers. When you hear gangs, you think, oh my God, let me run. But let me tell you, when the Spades started back up in Soundview, you understand, people was welcome to see them. Welcome to see them. When you was going, I can't get the other schools out of my mouth right now, but when you was going to all them schools up there, all the way up in the Bronx, you was welcome to see the Spades, because white gangs, we could do the Bronx. You understand? Roosevelt, Truman, a lot of these different places. And there was a lot of times we had to come up there and fight for our brothers and sisters. You know? And not only did we fight, and I'll say this, you understand, out and out. Not only did we have to fight the white gangs, but we had to fight the police as well. Because in order to get in those neighborhoods, the white gangs was with the police, because the police was white at that time. So, you know, and then when you hear gangs, back then, before it started getting violent, people welcomed. Today, there's a whole new different concept. We wasn't into drugs back then. Back then, we understand it was forbidden for us to sell drugs back then. I can't talk for other gangs, but I know the Black Spades, we had a code, and we had a code, and we had a rule. And that rule was we protect our neighborhoods, and we wasn't selling drugs. Everybody smoked reefer for the last 25 million years. But as far as hard drugs, none of our brothers and sisters was allowed to even touch those drugs. So, you know, when people hear the word gang, the first thing they hear is they want to hold their bags and they want to run and hide, and that's because it's turned over. And the gangs today are not like the gangs yesterday, you know. And the concept that a lot of our young brothers have is not like what we had. You know, back then we had laws, and if you didn't follow these laws, you was moved on. And what I mean moved on, your gang would move on you. You understand? Because we had laws that had to be followed, because we were so large and so strong. We couldn't take, you understand, anyone doing their own thing.
So y'all regulated each other.
Yes, we regulated each other. We understand, and we kept ourselves in line. You know, nowadays you have, you know, these organizations today, and it's hard to keep everybody in line because everybody got a whole new different mindset, and everybody wants to be in charge. Back then we had leadership, and our leadership was very important. Our leadership was so strong, you understand, that we could stand up to the church leadership or the police leadership because we followed orders. And if we didn't follow orders, it meant for somebody to die. And we followed orders. We followed orders.
So, you know what? Let me give a scenario. So let's say somebody in your organization went to another part of town that's not a Spades territory and acted up, and it got back to you. The street org, the gang that whose turf that was upset by it, wanted to do something to the dude, didn't catch him, but it got back to your organization that one of your own did something knuckleheaded in another part of town. What might he face?
You know, back then, I think it was over 100 gangs in the Bronx. In order for us to survive, we had rules and we had laws. If I came into your territory and we had peace with you, and y'all put your hands on me, then we gonna come back and retaliate. But then we would deal with that brother who went into that neighborhood and act up. See, we would deal with that brother, but we wouldn't allow you to deal with that brother. We dealt with him because say, hey, yo, you know we had peace up there. Why you go do that? But in the same token, we dealt with those brothers because nobody puts their hands on any of our brothers. No, our brothers and sisters, right or wrong. And that don't mean that you can just go into another neighborhood and act out, because these peace treaties were very, very important. It saved lives. There were so many gangs in the city that if you didn't have these peace treaties, you understand, so many people would have died. And if something took place up in the North Bronx, then the North Bronx would have meetings with the South Bronx, West Bronx, East Bronx, Spades, and they would let them know, okay, right now we got peace treaties with the Savage Skulls. So that means Savage Skulls, if they exist anywhere, we would have peace. Now, if they violated it, then hey, you can't do nothing about it but go to war. But we would try to uphold this peace because we know what the consequences are if we violate it. And if they violate it, we did what we had to do. But we try to maintain these peace treaties. And the peace treaties were like in the projects, every block. You have these different blocks today, 143rd, 142nd. There was gangs in these blocks. And everybody these gangs had set certain rules. Now, one thing the Spades didn't do, we don't turn our colors over. I don't care damn where we went. And we respect you, but we never turn our colors over. If we was going into a hostile neighborhood and we know it was hostile, then we either stay away from it or we go in there knowing what had to be done. But we never turn our colors over, and we never, you understand, and we never went and disrespect anybody if we didn't have to. And I'm saying never, but we know it did. We always had souls that went in there and started trouble, but we dealt with them. Even though if they got hurt or whatever, we went to retaliate, but then we dealt with our own people for what they had to do. We had strict rules and strict laws that had to be governed by the organization, because if not, then that would make everybody understand a renegade. And there was too many of us to be a renegade.
Right now, I'm very interested to hear from you. Why do you think the Black Spades even came into existence? Why were they born?
Well, like I said earlier, our brothers, our founders, I won't say their names because I'm telling you, a lot of our founders sit in some high seats today. And a lot of them don't say who they used to be, so we don't call their name as much. If they want to reveal themselves, then fine. But the Spades came into existence up in the Soundview area of the Bronx because back in the 70s, there was a lot of drug. And there was a lot of white gangs up there. You go into Truman, go into Roosevelt, you understand? Bronx High School of Science. You wouldn't believe that a lot of blacks, the problems we had. You understand? Arthur Avenue. These schools were at that time were just tearing blacks and Puerto Ricans up. So we would go up there and help our brothers and sisters from our neighborhoods. So you know, understand, and then a lot of white gangs back there up in the Soundview section, they had to fight back then. So it wasn't like they became a gang. And then, like I said, we had a lot of drugs, and the brothers and sisters didn't want their mothers and fathers, you understand, to fall prey to those who were back there that was on drugs, that was robbing. So when the Spades was formed, it was formed as an organization of men and women who was created from the Black Panthers and the Nation of Islam, who wanted to work within their community. And no more, no less. And like I said, when the leadership changed over, when a lot of our founders left and the leadership turned over, it went another way. I'm not going to say it went another way for bad. It went another way for survival. And that's why the Spades, you understand, that's why the Spades came into existence. And it was a few of them. And they used the word Black Spades because what suited us as Black people. They tried all kind of names, Black Jacks, Black Mobiles, Black this, Black that. But when they came to the word Black Spades, it just shot out. It shot out, and it rang in their ears. And they said, "This is who we're going to become. We're going to become Black Spades," and that created the birth of the Spades. The word Black Spade attracted the blackness of the Black people, and it was something that people was just fascinated by. Black Spades, they identified with it. They also, you know, understand. And when in my neighborhood, when we started, the Spades came together. The Mott Haven section of the Bronx, we really come together as a gang. When I joined the Spades, I came together because we had drugs in our neighborhood. We had people coming into our projects. You understand, that was robbing people. We kept all that out of our projects. So you know, and it's like, we became one of the largest street gangs in New York. And don't get me wrong, there was gangs, you understand, but we were one of the largest. The Those were large. The Bastards was large. You understand, we don't take nothing from nobody. But we became, in the city, throughout the 5 boroughs, became one of the largest gangs. And we fought every gang. We fought every gang and we survived. And this is, our numbers increased. In the South Bronx alone, I think there was over 40,000 Spades. Now, somebody will protest that. Somebody don't want to believe that. But you know, there was Spades all over. You understand? There was Spades all over the Bronx. So many of these movies, Gangs in New York, and all these movies, they want to portray all these white gangs. I know it goes back in history, but where are we? You understand? They always want to put us at the bottom. They don't never want to reveal that a lot of these gangs were not here to create chaos and all this. We came into existence and we changed it. We changed the existence of where we was going and where we came from and where we going. But we didn't come into this, you understand, to be a terror and to cause havoc. You understand? We came in this to protect our communities. But let me try to clear up something. You had a lot of white gangs as well. And they wasn't living in our areas. They came out of good areas, but they were gangs. They came together to stop us. They came together because they didn't want us in their schools. They came together because they didn't want us to walk on their streets. Do you understand? I live in the Co-op City now section of the Bronx. There was a time we couldn't walk up here, Pelham Bay area. We couldn't walk on Fordham Road. We had to fight these gangs. And the difference between the white gangs and us is that they had the police. So instead of us fighting boys or teenagers like us, we were fighting men. And they had more protection than us because they were protected by the police, who didn't care nothing about us as well. I don't want to sit here and be a racist, but it is what it is. There were a lot of gangs, and not because we came out of poverty-stricken areas. No, yes, we lived in these places. You understand? We lived in these places, and these places where they wanted us to be. But I want everybody to understand there was gangs everywhere, even in the Pelham section of the Bronx where we couldn't walk. There was a lot of white gangs, and they were doing some of the craziest things we did. We had gangs that came into Soundview. We had gangs that came off, white gangs that came off Fordham Road. We had white gangs, you understand, that will come down to Concourse. They challenged us like we challenged them. But you see, when we chased them and we got to a certain part of town, we couldn't go in because then the police, and even on Fordham Road, when we got into a big fight one time on Porter Road, but then we started fighting with the police. So it's not like because we come out of poverty. It's not like because we come out of these, they want, like they say, ghetto street neighborhoods, that we got gangs. Yes, we got a lot of things going on, but people got to understand gangs are everywhere. It's just how they're being dealt with and the conditions that they live in. Some people, you understand, live in houses, and when they finish, they go close their door. We going back in the projects, so we go into tenement buildings. You understand? Our neighborhoods just don't look like their neighborhoods. You understand? So they want to label us, and I hate the labels. You understand? I hate the labels. Because a lot of us, you understand, are intelligent. You understand? A lot of spades have moved on through college. You understand? A lot of spades have moved on and done a lot of great things. So, you know, it's who you are and where you come from, you know?